I never imagined my life would take this turn. Back on Earth, I was just another forgettable guy scraping by. I joined the Interstellar Navy because I needed stability, not glory. The recruiters promised steady pay, decent meals, and the chance to see the stars. That was enough for me. The reality was long stretches of routine. Maintenance checks, cargo runs, endless hours staring at the same steel walls. Adventure? Not really. But all of that changed the day the Argus, my ship, picked up a faint distress signal from a sector not yet mapped on human star charts. At first, we thought it was just background noise. But the signal repeated, over and over, a clear distress beacon encoded in a language none of us recognized. Protocol demanded we investigate. We dropped out of FTL and found ourselves staring at a nightmare. A cruiser, easily 3 times the size of our own, drifted dead in the void. Its hull was torn open in several places, like something had clawed straight through the plating. Energy readings were faint, almost gone. The captain debated what to do. Interstellar law said we had to render aid to any sentient species in distress. But there was risk, unknown tech, unknown biology, and the very real possibility of hostiles lurking nearby. Eventually, duty won out. We docked. I was on the boarding team. Lucky me. The inside of the alien ship was wrong. That's the only word for it. The corridors were unervingly tall, surfaces covered in ridges that pulsed faintly, as though the ship itself breathed. Purple emergency lighting bled across the walls, casting everything in a sickly glow. The air was heavy, thick with a metallic tang that made me gag inside my helmet. We expected bodies. Instead, we found her. She stood in the middle of a wide chamber, barely holding herself upright. Easily 7 feet tall, with 4 muscular arms and digitigrade legs ending in clawed feet. Her skin was jet black, marked with faintly glowing blue patterns that shifted when she moved. A crest rose from her skull, ridged and sharp, shimmering faintly under the lights. Her eyes caught me first. Silver. Bright as molten metal. They locked onto me the instant we entered. She staggered forward, clutching her side where greenish blood seeped through shattered armor. She said something in her language, sharp, melodic syllables, the translator implant spitting out nothing but static. The Marines raised their rifles. My instincts screamed at me to back away. But something in the way she moved stopped me. She wasn't lunging. She wasn't attacking. She was asking for help. Before I even thought about it, I stepped between her and the rifles. "She's not hostile," I shouted. "Stand down." I holstered my own weapon. Slowly, I extended a hand. Her clawed hand shot out and clamped around my wrist. For a heartbeat, I thought she was going to snap the bones. Instead, she just held on. Tight. Like my presence alone was the thread keeping her tethered to life. That was the moment everything changed. We carried her back to the Argus. Our medics scrambled, scanning her strange anatomy. Most of her organs didn't even register properly on our machines. By all accounts, she should have been dead from blood loss alone. But she clung to life with sheer stubbornness. Whenever she drifted close to unconsciousness, she searched for me. Not the captain. Not the doctors. It was unsettling. Eventually, she recovered enough to speak. The translation AI struggled, but we pieced together fragments. Her name was unpronounceable in English, something like a chord played on 3 instruments at once. She noticed our trouble and gave me a shortened version, Vari. She was part of an elite guard, sworn to protect her people's royal lineage. The cruiser we'd found had been carrying high-value passengers when they were ambushed by a rival faction. The rest of her squad was gone. She was the last survivor. From the very beginning, she fixated on me. Whenever I entered the med bay, her silver eyes tracked me. When I spoke, she listened with an intensity that made my skin prickle. It wasn't just gratitude. It was something deeper. The first time she managed a complete sentence through the translator, she pressed 2 of her hands against my chest and said, "You are mine." I froze. "Excuse me." I stammered. She repeated it, more firmly, like it was an oath carved into stone. "You. Mine." The Marines laughed themselves sick when they heard. One slapped me on the shoulder. "Congrats, lover boy. Guess you're engaged now." I laughed along, But inside? I was shaken. See, her people didn't do relationships like we do. No dating, no long courtship, no testing compatibility. From what little I understood, it was primal and absolute. You saw someone, you declared them yours, and that was that. The problem? She had no idea what being yours meant to a human. Over the next few weeks, her attempts at what I can only call courting grew stranger. Once, she handed me a jagged hunk of her ship's armor, placing it reverently in my hands. "Gift," she said. "Proof of strength." Another time, she challenged 3 Marines in the gym to sparring. They laughed, until she floored all of them in under a minute. She turned to me afterward, crest glowing faintly, and declared, "For you." I honestly didn't know whether to be flattered or terrified. But here's the thing, for all her alien fierceness, Vari wasn't just some war machine. There were moments, small, fleeting, where I saw cracks in the armor. When she struggled with human words. When she frowned in frustration at failing to use our tools. When she sat silently at the viewport, staring at the stars like they were graves. She'd lost everything. Her people. Her mission. Her purpose. And somehow, she'd chosen me as her anchor. I should have reported it. Regulation demanded the captain be informed of her attachment. But every time I tried, I stopped myself. Because when Vari looked at me, I felt something too. Something raw and terrifying and magnetic. The crew kept teasing me. "When's the wedding, lover boy? Better brush up on alien customs. Think her dad's gonna like you?" I brushed it off, laughing with them, but the truth gnawed at me. Vari wasn't joking. In her mind, she had already claimed me. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure I wanted to fight it. Life aboard the Argus changed after Vari's arrival. The crew went from wary to curious. At first, everyone kept their distance, treating her like a dangerous animal we'd brought into our living quarters. But after the medics confirmed she wasn't a threat, people began to linger in the medbay, sneaking glances at the towering alien warrior who claimed me as hers. I don't think Vari understood what curiosity meant. Whenever she noticed anyone staring, she would bare her teeth in what I think was meant to be a smile. Judging by the way the Marines flinched, it didn't have the intended effect. Me, though. I couldn't avoid her. Not that I wanted to. She made sure of it. Wherever I went, cafeteria, training deck, even engineering, she found me. And every time, she tried to understand what it meant to be human. It started small. She would point at things like a child learning a language. Food, sleep, ship. She absorbed words like a sponge. But then came the harder questions. One day, while we were sitting in the mess hall, she gestured at 2 crewmates laughing together and asked through the translator, "Why do they show teeth?" "Are they angry?" "They're smiling," I explained. "Humans do that when we're happy." Her crest tilted in confusion. Showing weapons means peace? Not weapons. Just a gesture. Like saying, "I'm friendly." She tried it then and there, lips pulling back to reveal a mouth full of serrated fangs. The entire table went silent. Someone dropped a fork. "Maybe, don't do that yet," I whispered. Her fascination didn't stop at smiles. She wanted to know everything about how humans chose partners. And that's where things got awkward. We were in the gym when she cornered me with the question. "Explain mating. Human way." I nearly dropped the weight I was lifting. "That's complicated. You said I am yours. I must understand rules." I never actually said. I stopped, realizing it was pointless. She had already decided. So I tried. I told her about courtship, about dating, about the messy, fragile process of getting to know someone before declaring them your mate. I explained how it wasn't just about strength or gifts, but about trust, respect, and love. She listened intently, silver eyes unblinking. When I finished, she nodded seriously. Then she said, "I will do this, dating." The problem was, she had no idea what dating looked like. Her first attempt happened 2 days later. I was in the cafeteria when she marched up, carrying a tray stacked with what I assumed were her offerings. A twisted hunk of broken metal. A ration pack she had obviously stolen from storage. And, God's help me, a dead maintenance drone she'd pried from the walls. She slammed the tray onto the table and declared, "Courtship gifts." Every crew member nearby erupted in laughter. I wanted the deck to swallow me whole. "Vari," I whispered, face burning, "humans don't give each other dead drones as gifts." Her crest dimmed slightly. "Not worthy enough." "It's not about worth. It's about thoughtfulness. Something that shows you care about the person." She frowned, clearly dissatisfied with the answer. Strange rules. Her second attempt was even worse. She decided to mimic human social bonding. Unfortunately, her only reference was watching two engineers arm wrestling for fun. The next day, she slammed her hands on the table in front of me and barked, "Challenge! For affection." I tried to explain that wasn't how it worked, but she wouldn't listen. She grabbed my hand, slammed it against hers, and forced me into an arm wrestling match. Her 4 arms gave her an unfair advantage. She didn't even need the extra 2. She crushed me with one, pinning my arm to the table so hard I thought my bones would snap. When it was over, she lifted my hand triumphantly and shouted, "Bond proven!" The cafeteria cheered like they were watching a sports match. Someone yelled, "Better put a ring on it, human." I wanted to crawl into a hole. But here's the thing, beneath all the embarrassment, part of me was touched. Vari was trying. Every awkward gesture, every botched attempt at dating, came from a place of genuine effort. She didn't understand human customs, but she wanted to. Because she wanted me. And I started to realize something. Her people's customs weren't wrong, just different. Where humans built connections slowly, through time and patience, her species relied on instinct and decisive action. They didn't waste months wondering if someone liked them back. They declared it, openly and fiercely. It was terrifying, but also kind of refreshing. One night, we sat together by the viewport, watching stars slip by. She asked me, "Why do humans hide feelings? Why not say truth?" I hesitated. Because feelings are complicated. Sometimes you're not sure what you feel. Or you're afraid of rejection. Or you don't want to hurt someone. She considered this, eyes glowing in the starlight. "Your way is weak." "Maybe," I admitted. "But it also makes the connection stronger when it's real. Because it's chosen, not forced." Her crest flickered faintly. "Then I will choose you. Again. Every day. Until you accept." My heart did a strange little flip at that. I should have been terrified. But instead, I found myself smiling. Of course, not everyone saw it that way. Rumors spread fast. Some of the crew thought it was hilarious. Others thought it was dangerous. A few whispered that I was compromising security by getting close to her. The captain called me into his office eventually. "You realize this could turn into a diplomatic nightmare, right?" he said, rubbing his temples. "If her people ever show up, and they find out one of their warriors decided to claim a human." "I didn't ask for this," I protested. "Doesn't matter. Appearances matter. Keep it professional." I promised I would. But deep down, I knew I couldn't. Because the truth was, Vari wasn't just an alien tagging along anymore. She was a part of my life. A confusing, terrifying, wonderful part. And despite all the cultural chaos, despite the laughter and the warnings, I felt myself being drawn closer. What I didn't realize then was how dangerous that bond would become. Because while I was teaching Vari about human customs, her people, or what was left of them, were learning about me. And not everyone approved of her unusual choice. If life aboard the Argus had been strange before, it became downright surreal after Vari started dating me in her own alien way. The jokes from the crew didn't stop, but there was a new edge to them, half amusement, half wariness. People weren't sure if they should laugh or worry. I wasn't sure either. Then came the transmission. We were in the middle of a routine systems check when the comms officer froze. "Incoming signal," she said, voice tight. "It's in the same language as our guest." Everyone crowded the bridge. The signal was rough, static-ridden, but unmistakably alive. A reply to Vari's distress beacon. The captain ordered it patched through. The view screen filled with the image of another alien, same general features as Vari, crest, glowing markings, those unsettling silver eyes. But where Vari's crest shimmered gently, his burned like fire. His armor was ornate, heavy, and clearly ceremonial. The translator lagged, spitting out jagged words. Vari. Alive. Return immediately. Vari's entire body stiffened. Her lower arms clenched into fists while her upper hands pressed against the viewport glass as if she could touch the image. She answered in her own tongue, voice sharp and defiant. The translator caught fragments. Ship destroyed, alone, rescued. Then her gaze flicked toward me. Her mockings flared. The alien on the screen went still. Then he spoke again, slower, colder. Human. Every eye on the bridge turned toward me. Later, Vari explained as best she could. The alien was one of her people's commanders, a guardian of their royal line. He demanded her return, and more importantly, demanded to know why she had bonded with a human. Apparently, word had traveled fast. What followed was an argument I could barely follow. Vari and the commander exchanged sharp bursts of language, her crest blazing brighter and brighter. Finally, the comms officer muttered, "They're insisting on a challenge. Some kind of trial." "Trial?" I echoed. "Yeah. To prove your worth." I laughed, thinking it was a mistranslation. But Vari's expression told me otherwise. The challenge was set. The commander's ship docked with the Argus. The aliens who came aboard were taller than Vari, bulkier, their armor gleaming like polished obsidian. They moved with perfect discipline, eyes burning with silver fire. Compared to them, I felt like a child wearing a cardboard uniform. Their leader, crest high, voice like grinding stone, announced the terms. If Vari wished to keep her claim on me, I had to prove myself. Not in combat, I'd be vaporized in seconds, but in a trial of strength and cunning. The captain objected, of course. He's a human, not part of your people's rituals. But Vari cut him off, her voice like a blade. He will fight. I wanted to protest. I really did. But when I met her eyes, those molten silver eyes burning with trust, I couldn't say no. The trial took place in the cargo bay, cleared of crates and equipment. A circle was marked on the floor, surrounded by both crews. Humans and aliens, shoulder to shoulder, watching. The challenge sounded simple: survive 3 rounds against obstacles of their choosing. They weren't allowed to kill me, but the smug look on their faces told me they weren't worried. Round 1. Combat drones. Sleek machines unfolded from alien containers, blades gleaming, sensors glowing. They moved with terrifying speed, surrounding me in seconds. My pulse spiked. The Marines muttered bets about how fast I'd be cut down. But here's the thing: humans may not be the strongest or fastest, but we're clever. While the drones advanced, I scanned the bay. Overhead, support beams. At my feet, discarded cabling. I grabbed the cable, looped it around one drone's legs, and yanked. It toppled, crashing into another. Sparks flew. The aliens murmured in surprise. Vari's crest glowed faintly brighter. I ducked, rolled, used the drone's momentum against them. By the time the last one shorted out, I was bleeding from a shallow cut, panting, but alive. Round 1 complete. Round 2 was worse. This time, they released a beast, something they'd brought aboard like a guard animal. It looked like a cross between a wolf and a tank, all muscle and teeth, easily twice my size. The crew gasped when it lunged, claws scraping sparks from the deck. I had no chance in a straight fight. But again, I looked for patterns. Weaknesses. I noticed the way its eyes tracked movement, over-focused, almost hypnotic. So I baited it. I darted left, then right, leading it in circles. I grabbed another loose cable and whipped it across its face. It roared, charging blindly. At the last second, I dove aside. It slammed headfirst into the bulkhead with a crunch. When it staggered, dazed, I grabbed a nearby emergency panel and triggered the fire suppression system. Foam blasted into its face, clogging its breathing vents. The beast collapsed, thrashing weakly before going still. The aliens didn't cheer. They didn't even blink. But their silence spoke volumes. Round 2 complete. Round 3 was different. This time, no drones, no beasts. Just a puzzle. A construct of glowing panels, shifting constantly, locking and unlocking in maddening patterns. The commander's voice echoed, "Solve it, or fail." I approached, heart hammering. I'm not a genius. But puzzles that I could handle. I studied the shifting lights, traced the patterns, found the rhythm. Left, right, diagonal, every move built on the last. It wasn't about brute force. It was about patience, focus. Minutes stretched into eternity. Sweat stung my eyes. My hands shook. But finally, with one last twist, the panels aligned. The construct dissolved in a flash of light. The bay fell silent. Then Vari's crest flared like a sunrise. The commander stared at me, unreadable. Finally, he inclined his head, just slightly. Human. Worthy. The aliens withdrew without another word. The trial was over. I collapsed to my knees, trembling. Vari was there in an instant, for arms pulling me up, holding me close. Her voice was low, fierce, reverent. "You are mine," she whispered again. But this time, it didn't sound like a declaration. It sounded like a vow. That night, as I lay in my bunk, bruised and aching, I replayed it all in my head. I'd faced death 3 times in a row, and somehow survived. Not because I was stronger, but because I was human. And for the first time, I realized something terrifying. I wanted her to keep choosing me. Not because she had claimed me, but because maybe, just maybe, I was starting to claim her too. I thought surviving the trial would be the end of it. I figured the aliens would grumble, maybe throw a few more suspicious looks my way, and then move on. I'd proven myself, right? That's what the whole ordeal was supposed to be about. But I was wrong. Surviving the trial didn't end things. It lit a fire. For the humans aboard the Argus, my victory was cause for celebration. The Marines clapped me on the back, laughing that I should start charging for alien relationship counseling. The engineers replayed the footage of me tricking the beast into slamming itself into the bulkhead. Even the captain, usually stone-faced, gave me a rare nod of approval. But the aliens, their silence was louder than any cheer. They didn't scowl, didn't rage. They simply watched me with unreadable silver eyes, as though trying to understand something they'd never considered possible. Vari, though. Vari glowed. Her crest shone brighter than I'd ever seen. She never let go of me the entire time, her 4 hands gripping my shoulders, my arm, even the back of my neck. It was like she thought if she released me, I'd vanish into the void. "You showed them," she whispered, her voice trembling with a pride that made my chest ache. "You are not weak. You are mine, and you are strong." Over the next few days, everything shifted. The aliens from Vari's people remained aboard, coordinating repairs to their damaged ship. Their presence loomed over every corridor, tall armored figures striding with predatory grace, making the crew nervous. But gradually, something changed. They began to approach me. It started small. A nod in the hallway. A questioning glance during meals. Then one warrior asked, haltingly through the translator, how I'd figured out the puzzle in the 3rd trial. Another wanted to spar with me, not to humiliate me, but to test human style. The more they asked, the more I realized they weren't just tolerating me. They were studying me. And in their eyes, I wasn't just a human anymore. I was Vari's choice. One evening, as I sat in the mess hall, the commander himself joined me. The room went dead silent. His presence was like a thundercloud, pressing down on everyone's shoulders. For a long moment, he said nothing. Just watched me eat my ration bar with those unblinking silver eyes. Then, finally, the translator chimed. "You are not what I expected." I swallowed hard. "Thanks, I think. You survived the trial. Not with claws. Not with armor. With something else. Adaptation. Unpredictability." He leaned closer. "We do not trust easily. But she has chosen you. And you, perhaps you are worthy." It wasn't acceptance. But it wasn't rejection either. And coming from him, it felt monumental. Vari was ecstatic when I told her. "They see you now," she said, her crest flickering with excitement. "Not just human. Mate." That word still made my heart stumble. "I'm not sure your people mean it the same way we do," I said carefully. "Then teach me," she replied, serious and soft in a way I hadn't seen before. And that's when things changed between us. Up until then, Vari's attempts at dating had been clumsy, even comical. But after the trial, she started listening. She asked questions, not about strength or dominance, but about me. My past. My home. My favorite foods, my worst fears, the things I missed most about Earth. She absorbed every word like it was sacred. One night, I caught her in the galley, struggling to replicate one of my favorite meals using our nutrient packs. It tasted awful, but the effort made me laugh so hard I nearly cried. Another time, she sat with me in silence for hours at the viewport, just being there. No declarations, no challenges, just quiet companionship. It was in those moments that I realized, she wasn't just claiming me. She was learning me. And in return, I was learning her. Her people's society valued strength, yes, but it wasn't just physical. It was the ability to endure, to adapt, to keep moving forward no matter what. Losing her entire crew should have broken her, but it hadn't. She carried that weight like armor, even when the cracks showed. When she finally spoke about the attack, the ambush that destroyed her cruiser, her voice was low, halting. I should have died with them. But I lived. Because I had not found you yet. I didn't know what to say. Words felt small compared to the enormity of her grief. So I didn't try to fix it. I just stayed beside her, letting the silence stretch. And when her crest dimmed with sorrow, I reached out and took her hand. She squeezed back with all four. Of course, not everyone was happy. Whispers spread among her people. Some still saw me as a weakness, a curiosity that would fade once the novelty wore off. Others argued that her bond with a human dishonored their traditions. The commander himself remained conflicted. He no longer openly challenged me, but his gaze lingered like a weight I couldn't shake. And then came the ultimatum. We were summoned to their repaired cruiser. The council of warriors gathered, crests glowing faintly in the dim chamber. The air was thick with judgment. The speaker, an elder whose markings pulsed like lightning, addressed Vari directly. You claim this human as mate. But his place among us is uncertain. If he is to stand beside you, he must not only prove himself once. He must belong. I felt the weight of every eye in the chamber. Belong. I echoed. The elder's gaze pierced me. Live as we live. Train as we train. Endure what we endure. Only then will you be more than an outsider. I glanced at Vari. Her eyes burned with defiance, but also fear that I would refuse. And for a moment, I considered it. I could walk away, let this end before it went too far. But when I looked at her, this fierce, stubborn, vulnerable alien who had chosen me against all odds, I knew my answer. I'll do it, I said. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Some approving. Some outraged. Vari's crest flared like a sunrise. And in that instant, I realized something I hadn't dared admit before. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was choosing her, the same way she had chosen me. Training with Vari's people was nothing like anything I'd endured before. The Marines on the Argus thought they were tough, but these aliens redefined the word. They woke before dawn cycles, their version of warm-up, involving lifting weights that would snap a human spine. They sparred with claws and staffs tipped in glowing blades. They ran obstacle courses in gravity that could double at random intervals. And I was expected to keep up. At first, it was humiliating. I was slower, weaker, clumsier. Every fall left bruises that bloomed across my skin. Every mistake earned quiet murmurs in their sharp, musical language. Some of them thought it was funny, a human stumbling through their sacred training. Others thought it was pathetic. But Vari never laughed. She never pitied me. She trained beside me, matching my pace, correcting my movements, sometimes carrying me when I collapsed. You endure, she told me one night as I lay half dead on the training mat. That is strength. Not claws. Not armor. Endurance. And slowly, painfully, I improved. Weeks passed. I learned their drills, their combat forms, their survival rituals. I couldn't match their raw power, but I didn't need to. I adapted. Where they struck with brute force, I dodged and countered. Where they endured pain without flinching, I found ways to minimize it, to use tools, to improvise. The more I adapted, the more their attitudes shifted. The The warriors who once sneered began to nod in respect. Some even sought me out, curious about human tactics. They were astonished by how I used psychology in combat, how I tricked sparring partners into overextending, how I turned weakness into advantage. For them, strength was straightforward, the biggest strike, the hardest endurance. For me, it was the ability to think sideways. And slowly, they began to see value in that. The moment of true acceptance came during the trial of storms. Every warrior had to face it once in their life, a brutal endurance test where they crossed a desert under twin suns, carrying only what they could bear. No shade, no respite, just heat and endless sand. I shouldn't have survived it. By every biological metric, I was doomed. My skin burned faster, my body needed more water, my muscles weaker than theirs. But I kept walking. Hour after hour, step after step, when every fiber of my body screamed to collapse, I pushed forward. I sang old earth songs under my breath to distract myself. I thought of home, of oceans and forests, of the taste of fresh air. And most of all, I thought of Vari, her crest glowing in the starlight, her voice fierce when she declared me hers. By the time I stumbled out of the desert, half-conscious and shaking, the warriors who waited at the end went silent. Then, one by one, they bowed their crests. To me. That night, around their fire pits, the elder spoke. This human has walked our path. He has endured our trials. He is not one of us by blood. But by will, he is worthy. The words rippled through the gathered warriors like thunder. Vari's eyes shone brighter than I'd ever seen. She stepped forward, placing all four of her hands on mine. The gesture silenced even the murmurs. "Then hear me," she said, voice steady but trembling at the edges. "I choose him. Not because he survived. Not because he proved himself. I choose him because he is him. Because he sees me, not just as warrior, not just as survivor, but as Vari." Her crest flared, a beacon in the night. And in that moment, I realized what I had to say. "And I choose her," I said, my voice cracking but loud enough for every ear. "Not because she's strong, not because she's fierce, but because she taught me what it means to endure. Because she believed in me when no one else did." Silence stretched. Then the commander, the same one who once demanded my trial, rose to his feet. He looked at us, eyes glowing like molten silver. "So it is done," he said. "Human and warrior. Two made one. Let it be recorded." Life after that wasn't magically perfect. There were still whispers, still doubts. But there was also acceptance. When I walked the halls of their ship, I wasn't just the human anymore. I was Vari's mate. Her equal. And between us, things shifted too. No more awkward gifts of broken machinery. No more sparring matches disguised as courtship. Now, she asked me what I needed. She listened when I spoke. She laughed, an actual laugh, not a teeth-baring snarl, when I told stupid stories about Earth. In return, I learned her silences. The way her crest dimmed when she thought of her lost comrades. The way she stood a little too still when the ship's alarms echoed, memories of that ambush carved into her bones. We didn't fix each other. But we stood together. And somehow that was enough. One night, as we sat at the viewport again, she leaned close and whispered, "Your people, when they write stories of first contact, what will they say of us?" I thought about it for a long time. They'll say a human and an alien met. That they didn't understand each other at first. That they made mistakes, clashed, even fought. But they learned. They endured. And in the end, I reached for her hand. In the end, they chose each other. She squeezed my hand, her silver eyes soft for once. "Good story," she murmured. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "I think so too." And that's the part the history books will never capture. Not the trials, not the rituals, not even the politics of it all. The real story is smaller, quieter. It's a human who thought he was nothing special, and an alien warrior who thought she'd lost everything. Two beings from different worlds, finding strength not in claws or weapons, but in each other. Humans aren't the strongest, or the fastest, or the most advanced. But we endure. We adapt. We find connection in the unlikeliest places. That's what makes us unique. That's why, When Vari looks at me with those blazing silver eyes, I don't see an alien. I see my future. Our future. Together.